Today we're talking Mickey 17, but before that,
we're a team of 3 friends, each with a passion for video games, movies, and most importantly, stories. We want to invite each other into the stories that influence the way we see ourselves and the world around us. Our goal is to build a community of enthusiasts, a community of people with their own stories and experiences to share, and we hope you join us for the ride.
By the time this podcast releases, we'll also have 2 pieces of content out. We'll have the Why Video Games Hold the Secret to Better Cities and the How We Review Movies podcast, also called our introduction podcast. Those will both be up right now for you guys to go see. Vincent, tell us a little bit about this movie.
So, if you are completely unaware, Mickey 17 is a sci-fi comedy based on the novel Mickey 7, starring Robert Pattinson, Naomi Aki, Stephen Ewan, Mark Ruffalo, Toni Collette, and is director Bong Joon Ho's first film after his Best Picture winning film, Parasite. Pretty crazy to follow this up. Parasite with Mickey 17, both very different movies, I would say, but both in director Bong Joon Ho's wheelhouse, for sure. He's made things all across the spectrum of comedy, dark comedy, very serious, dramatic pictures, and the whole bit. So when it was announced that he was kind of doing Mickey 17 after Parasite, I was like, it's an interesting choice, but it feels like it would fit. All we knew was that it was going to be Robert Pattinson and that he was getting cloned.
It's an interesting choice after Parasite because it's such a tonal shift, but it feels like a return to home for sure. Before we talk more about the film, I want to reiterate what we talked about in our intro podcast. So if you haven't seen that, I would recommend going back and watching that before this one. Do your homework a little bit because that kind of lays the foundation for how we talk about films and games and why we do so, why we rate things what we rate them. If you haven't seen the film, we encourage you to watch it and then come listen to us talk about it, just so it's not spoiled for you, because full disclosure, we are going into full spoilers.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had a good time with this. I think you all make a great point. Tonal shift, because I had only seen Parasite. I knew of Bong Joon Ho's work from some film classes, and I knew what he put in his films, like context-wise, of like the themes he messed around with. And so going to this, I was expecting something like Parasite, even though from the trailers it looked fun. But I think it was more of an entertaining film than I would have expected. So I had definitely a fun time with it. And while I would say initially surface level thoughts, I think the themes were a bit on the nose. There's a lot to unpack there that I think is, great points. And I think it was pretty cool executed because it was something that I felt like was fresh and unique from the past films that I've seen. So I know we'll get into it and break apart the little nitty-gritties. So what do you think?
Totally.
Which Snowpiercer, which Bong Joon Ho films have you seen?
Oh, yeah. Well, thanks. So Snowpiercer and Parasite and I want to say parts of The Host. I believe I've seen clips of The Host. And I believe that's it. Not much. Right.
James, what about you? What have you seen?
I've only seen Snowpiercer, Parasite, and now Mickey 17.
Okay. These are interesting. You guys are talking about like his most dramatic movies.
Yeah.
Snowpiercer and The Host are very much, The Host is kind of pseudo horror sort of vibe that he kind of goes for. But he has also made movies like Barking Dogs Never Bite, which is one of his first movies, which is very much comedy first, like a dark comedy overall. Mm-hmm. It's kind of about this person that lives in an apartment complex, and there's just a dog that just keeps barking, and so he wants to kill the dog. Like that's the movie is about him.
That's hilarious.
He wants to take it out. And,
great concept.
But there's so much more that happens within the movie, the characters. But that was a later introduction to me because the first introduction to Bong was Memories of Murder for me. Have you guys seen that one?
No.
Incredible. I think it's Parasite. Parasite's really hard to beat. It's incredible on so many levels. But Memories of Murder is amazing. I would love to talk about that on a podcast sometime. But Mickey 17 is like a departure from what I usually like in Bong's movies. Like his dramatic ones are a next level to me. They have comedy in the more dramatic ones, but it's the ones where he focuses on the comedy that don't hit as hard for me, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But coming off the heels of Parasite, my expectations were pretty high for this movie. And I they didn't really meet for me. Like it didn't really hit in the ways that I wanted it to hit, and that's me going into it with too many expectations. I think, but I thought, I mean, I can't wait to get into some of the performances, and that really were hilarious, and I thought it was a very enjoyable movie, but not a very long-lasting movie that I feel like most of his films are for me.
Yeah.
In terms of the impact.
Yeah, the impact. It didn't have a big impact for me.
Yeah.
Okay. James, did you have... Oh, yeah, I was just queuing it up to you. You got it.
Yeah, no, I relate. I think it didn't have the impact that I wanted from it, but it was really good. I think it was a really fun time. It felt very like Snowpiercer in its approach to like the world and the way it's kind of doing a satire a bit. And I like that Bong Joon Ho, because this was the first time I saw Bong Joon Ho leaning into the more comedy side of it, and to see him really like, I think that really succeeded. I thought so much of it was hilarious.
Yeah.
I thought it was beautiful. I thought everything looked great. Everything sounded great. But I think it didn't have as strong of an impact as Parasite. I don't think he's gone and done it again. I think he has, in a sense, in terms of like creativeness, but I don't think I just don't think it'll have as much oomph as Parasite did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, what's up?
Give me a little breakdown. What is the movie about?
Okay, so here's my perspective of what I think the film is about. Mickey
Totally,
17,
yeah.
And plus we're going spoilers too. I was worried about that. So Mickey, of course, his name is Mickey Barnes. His actual name is Mickey Barnes, which of course gets revealed at the end. I'm jumping to that real quick. He of course is in debt to a loan shark. Him and Steven Yeun's character, they're both friends. They get in debt with the loan shark because they try to make a macaroon shop. That goes south.
Yeah,
It's just hilarious. That's hilarious.
so funny.
Yeah, it really felt like, oh, this is funny. They were trying to make money out of that. And so Mickey's like, I need to jump ship and join this program, the Expendables program. So he gets sent up to space, kind of summarize as best as I can.
Yeah.
He gets sent to space as an expendable, not really knowing what is on the dotted line in the instructions for the contract. And of course, it's where they're experimenting on him and he's able to be cloned and be used as a tool for the survival of humanity up in space as they leave Earth for a new planet. Niflheim, I believe it's called.
Yeah.
Niflheim.
Mark Ruffalo's
Very
character.
Norse.
Yeah, right. I was like, this is
Very Norse.
the location from Thor, I feel like.
Yeah,
Niflheim,
right.
Which actually makes sense because it is actually Niflheim, I think, is the ice planet, right? We know from God of War games and Thor lore.
Totally.
So it's pretty accurate. And so he gets caught up, cloning himself, going through Mickey 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then when he gets to Mickey 17, when he's supposed to be dead, when he's supposed to be killed, they clone him again for Mickey 18. Except that 17 version doesn't die, and he runs into his self. And now there's two, which what's the official term? Duplicates?
Multiples.
Multiples, yeah.
Yeah, multiples. The multiples. They made a clause against that because there was a serial killer that kept cloning himself and kept getting away with crimes.
Which is very
just
funny.
So wild, and I
Very
just
funny.
remembered that
Stabbing
happened.
homeless people.
Yeah, I mean, if you cloned yourself, you could. Yeah, I mean, there's so many possibilities in what you could get away with and what you could do, both for good and bad. So that's horrible that he abused that. So they made a clause that multiples couldn't be used. They would kill both and remove all.
Kill all of them.
Kill all of them.
Yep.
Wipe them out. So that's what Robert Pattinson's character Mickey, he was worried about. He was like, well, now there were multiples, we have to hide this. And then you throw in the aspect of them having a girlfriend. Now there's two of them. How do they share? With people knowing, And
Challengers X Mickey Pattinson.
Yeah,
Mickey 17. Mickey Pattinson.
There was a little Challengers bit in that. And then I guess the two more other aspects to throw in is that as they arrive to this new planet, there's an alien species, which of course are actually the natives to the planet, which are kind of walrus alien characters. And then you also have the politicians, right? They're the literal politicians that are running the ship, because it's kind of like a billionaire-run corporate expedition. It's not really like a global thing. It's just like a billionaire politician got a couple 100,000 people together and said, let's get off the planet. So it's very cult-like and very...
And they want to like start fresh.
Yeah.
Like they kind of like started fresh, and there's a sort of like the ethnic purity to it sort of thing, where it's like they want to have like a master race behind it, and so he's sort of like selecting people that would be the guy played by Mark Ruffalo, Kenneth Marshall. He sort of is like, okay, we're gonna have these people who are ideal gene pool, and we're gonna like start this colony of people, and they're like a big theme of the ship is they're sharing resources, and it's food scarcity, and so you have to conserve energy and everything. There's like a sex ban over everybody because sex uses too much energy, but then when they finally get there and when they break ground, then they'll be able to like reproduce.
As Mark Ruffalo would say. I thought Mark Ruffalo and Tony Colletti's characters as like the cult kind of, I mean, not just cult leaders, they're religious. They use religion to kind of I don't know, get their like get their people excited.
It's it very much is satire of like American political leaders. Like Mark Ruffalo is obviously doing a Trump sort of thing.
Esque.
It's Trump adjacent, and it's like bolstered by like the church, and they start to like come alongside it, and you have these like church leaders who are using church language like to feed into the political agenda of Kenneth Marshall and Alpha, who are these leaders who are failed politicians on Earth. So part of it is they are moving to the moon to like sort of start fresh and kind of like find in their.
They would like to have their own thing. They would like to have their own thing. They're like,
you know what, like systems of political systems on Earth aren't for us. We're gonna go to the moon where there's to Niflheim to where there's we don't have to deal with that.
Yeah, it's kind of it's definitely one of the more on the nose themes of the movie. It's not necessarily anything new. It doesn't feel like new ground treaded or has anything new to say about it, but it is hilarious. They're extremely funny, and it does have, it creates this oppressive nature that this movie needs. Like, you need Robert Pattinson's character to feel like a cog in the machine, and everybody to be a cog in the machine for the other themes to kind of like thrive and come out of the ashes here. So getting a little bit more into the plot of the movie, I guess, is the expedition where Mickey 17 is supposed to die. These aliens, or not aliens, but these creatures that live on this planet kind of save him. They don't allow him to die. They push him back up out of the ice and, send him on his way back
they
to
pushed him out. They're like,
base camp.
Go on.
Yeah, right. So, but on the other hand, we have these cult leaders, these Mark Ruffalo and Tony Colletti characters, kind of capturing these little guys, and it becomes this weird relationship where we have, the cult leaders are trying to take out whatever is living on this planet, but then the realization that these creatures aren't actually like going to attack them. They helped Robert Pattinson. They want their children back, their child, or two of them,
Yeah, they're not hostile. They just wanted the sauce. That's what's such a wild thing about this Toni Collette's character, is that she was so enamored by making a sauce, which maybe goes into that Southern, again, politician, religious vibe of like, gotta make some country gravy or something. It's like being from Texas, like the sauce is what matters. You care about the sauce. But, cutting off tails of poor little guys, that's just horrific. There was no remorse for that. There was no empathy for these creatures.
No.
I mean, that's just crazy.
They're they are an ingredient for their purposes.
Definitely judging a book by its character, because, you see a creature like that and you think, oh, it looks hostile, but yeah, maybe you give it some time. I mean, I guess you wouldn't assume that it could speak, but maybe, they have the scientists there. The scientists were at the, beck and call for the politicians, not the other way around, even though the scientists, I think, could probably have the final say on, like, maybe let's do some studies. Maybe they're more intelligent than they are, which they did say. They said, well, actually intelligent. They actually can speak. And it's like, we just need a translator. So, kind of quick to action there, quick to take action.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you guys have a favorite scene of this movie? I have a scene, like, we've kind of told the general plot of this movie, and there's a scene I really want to talk about. So do you guys have any?
Go, Vin. Go, yeah.
Well,
You
I
have it
love
on
the
some
dinner
notes.
scene. I think the dinner scene is the best scene in this movie.
The
So
one where he's dying.
yes, it's
I
hilarious.
did want to get into that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really funny.
Tell me
So
what
basically,
what you like.
on this ship, on this expedition, the Mark Ruffalo's character, Kenneth, I gotta call him Kenneth. I keep forgetting his name, but there's an employee of the week type situation to try to, get everybody
Boost morale.
Yeah, boost morale, get everybody excited. They're living under these 20 calories a day meals. Like, if you get chosen as the employee of the week, you get to come to our special penthouse suite and have a meal with us. And it's like a big meal of whatever it is, So at one point, Mickey gets chosen. But at that point, there's two Mickeys. So Mickey 17 goes.
Yeah.
But Mickey
well,
18
is with his girlfriend.
yeah, with Mickey's girlfriend.
Should we talk about the difference between the two Mickeys?
Yeah, this is an interesting part too. I guess we should probably go into that first.
Yeah, I had some points too.
So Mickey 17. So with every iteration of Mickey Barnes, there is, first of all, they're numbered, but they also kind of have unique personalities.
Yeah.
And this isn't really shown until Mickey 18, because Mickey 17 is he's kind of like a freaky little guy.
He's a weird guy.
He has his voice like this, and they're like, oh, like, oh, this stuff is happening. I don't know what to do. But then 18 comes along, and he has a deeper voice, and he's like, I hate you. You're such a little bitch. You can't do anything. And he has the rage. He has the radical rage of he wants to really kill Kenneth Marshall. Where I think Mickey 17 has definitely doesn't like Kenneth Marshall, but he just doesn't feel the agency to really do anything about his situation. He's just kind of more, I think he prioritizes sort of self-preservation. He loves his girlfriend, Nasha.
It's his most important thing in his life. It's beautiful.
Most important thing in his life, and he just that's all that matters to him. It's really just keeping going, surviving. But then Mickey 18 comes along, and he wants to rage against the machine.
Yeah, go for it, right?
Well, I'll say before we get back to the dinner scene, I do want to make a point about 18 that I loved, is that while each version I think was a more stripped down version of who Mickey is, which of course makes sense, but I think 18 was more of face the facts and face the truth, right? Especially when it comes to the situation he's in space, but also with his mother and how he feels responsible for killing his mother. 18 both knew it too. They're we both know you're not responsible for that. You need to get over it, because we know it was a car default. But 17 had still this guilt, and maybe that shaped who he is as maybe a scared kind of reserved guy. But 18 more of in depth of nah, I accept it. Dude, come on, get over it, and being that stronger version of him. That's how I took that.
You just hit a really good point there that makes me think about it differently. That each iteration of Mickey is a more stripped down version of himself, or let's say each of his characteristics are maybe more focused every time he gets reprinted. That's an interesting way to look at it, because originally I thought that was kind of like a throw-in. Mickey 17 is in a laundry basket, and getting wheeled around by Mickey 18, and then it's the narration voice. He's like, oh yeah, Mickey 13 was a something, Mickey 14 was a something, and this Mickey 18 is a real asshole, or some sort of thing.
Yeah.
It felt like there was zero explanation besides that line in the movie, and that kind of was off-putting to me. But the way that you just explained it there, or that you saw it, of it being a more I don't know, a more refined version of Mickey is very interesting. Especially
they're all him,
Right, they're all him. And this is a major change from the book. The book, every iteration of Mickey is exactly the same. And so there's no personality difference. I think that it's an interesting move to do a different personality difference. And it kind of makes an antagonist for the film, too, a little bit. Mickey 18 is, he's not necessarily an antagonist, but you're rooting for 17. You're not rooting for 18.
There's something to combat on top of the already overwhelming scenario you're in.
Right.
It's now yourself.
Mickey 17, we've spent a lot of time with him.
Totally.
And so we are more predisposed to have feelings about who 17 is.
Another quick point is how he feels about his friend. Maybe that's another example of why I feel it's iterations of himself, because he turns to him and he says, look, we both know that guy, he's the one that got us into this.
Timu.
like
Timo.
Yeah, Timo, Steven Yeun's character, 17 knows it too. I think it's just 18 more of the outward, more not confident, but more outwardly version of himself saying like, we should kill him. And yeah, well, of course he has more violent tendencies, which might be more of a funny aspect of him. I think the truth side to him is more of who Mickey really is. Like, this is seeing scenarios and seeing people who they really are.
He's upset that his friend roped him into this.
Yeah.
He doesn't really show it in 17, but he shows it in 18 a lot.
Right.
That also, Ryder, you were telling me that you really loved Steven Yeun's character.
Yeah. I mean, I love the guy just because, of course, I love Invincible, and so his voice acting is that you see him, you hear him in this show, and you're like, this film, and you're like, wow, there he is. Like, that's the voice. That's the guy that has that voice. He has a charismatic nature about him, and I think he's such a unique character actor, and I feel like he's done things that are dramatic, and he's done a variety of things that I feel like are not normal or not the base thing. Like, he has such a good variety to his career that I'm enamored by him, and I like his performance in this.
He was great in this. He does give the very cool, calm, and collected person, but then also like crazy. Like on a flip of a dime, he's gonna do something crazy. It was similar to his performance in Beef a little bit.
Oh,
where,
yeah, definitely.
Like, he just gets crazier and crazier kind of throughout the show. And I thought he was great in this. Super funny. Great performance.
Do y'all want to go back?
I love the scene of him when the guy comes to collect at the very end. He comes to collect, and he, fights this dude. And I can't believe he wins against this big-ass
huge guy.
This huge guy who comes and, pulls a knife on him, and he ends up winning, and then he has this whole case on him, but I just thought it was hilarious.
It was very funny.
Yeah, it almost shows how maybe they got in that scenario with the loan shark, because we didn't see how they kind of escaped the scenario in the restaurant. Maybe they did, maybe I'm just forgetting, but the fact that he was talking his way out of the court case at the end kind of shows this guy can handle himself with his mouth. You can kind of get an idea of in the beginning how he's like, wait, just give us some more time so that they can get out of that scenario.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Talks himself out of every situation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, I was going to say, back to the dinner scene if you're...
Back to the dinner scene. Yeah, I want to talk about the dinner scene a little bit more. So basically, Mickey gets chosen as Employee of the Week and gets to go have a meal with Kenneth and Alpha, the cult leaders on the ship. And they feed him a... What is it? A 3D printed steak or something.
No, it's steak, but it's artificial.
An artificial steak.
Yeah.
They're eating the real steak, and he gets this artificial fake steak, but he's chowing down. It's more food than he's ever gotten ever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, someone gets invited. Another crew member gets invited. Who?
Kai.
To this dinner, and Kenneth and Alpha kind of tell Kai that she is the perfect candidate to start the breeding process when they start making babies on Nilfheim. Yes, this pure species that they speak of, which is crazy. And she's honored but resistant of this thing. What did you guys feel about her character through this?
I was actually really torn on her character because I thought she was going to become an ally sort of character through this interaction. I thought through this she might see through the cult and see behind the curtain and become sort of outraged at it. And then in the scenes following this one, I think the dinner scene is what kicks off the last act of the movie.
Yeah, totally.
And when she finds out, because that's after that is when she finds out that there's multiples, and then it goes into the whole cascading effect of everyone knows there's multiples and what do they do about it and how that interacts with everything else. But she then talks to Nasha about taking taking Mickey 17 for herself, while Nasha keeps 18, and
it's
then.
Funny.
I think that maybe she is gonna come to the side of them. She obviously shows interest in Mickey 17 to some degree, that she wouldn't
definitely
want them both killed. But in the end, she does end up still siding with Kenneth Marshall, and I feel like she is a part of the force to kill the creepers and to.
Oh yeah. No, she's what do they say? Sipping the juice or whatever, you know?
Yeah,
sipping
she's drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, she's drinking the Kool-Aid, for sure, as are most people on the ship.
But she is a little defiant because she said, "What am I, just a uterus to you?" Like she was like,
Yes,
I don't know. There's some
Right,
nature
she
to
has
her.
she has an inkling of that, but it's not enough.
Yeah, it's
But
not enough.
That's the point of the movie to me.
Yeah.
Of like that not enough thing is is probably what everybody is feeling on the ship.
Yeah.
Mickey 17 or Mickey's character is that exception. I would say also Nasha, who is a great character too. I think she's really well written. I think there's lots of opportunities where she could have been someone that is completely into this cult thing, but she's not. She likes her job. She's proud of her job and her position, but not necessarily proud of the things she has to do. And that comes to a culmination at the end of kind of standing up against these people.
That's a great point. Yeah.
I wish we got why she was there in the first place. I don't think we ever get an explanation of what makes her sign up for the program.
Yeah.
But I think that would kind of drive her character a little more, because I really enjoy her character. It seems like in a direction where Nasha could be written and turned into a character that is incredibly flawed and is sort of like bad for Mickey or manipulating Mickey in a certain way. Right. You know, like especially when it comes to Mickey 17 and 18, we sort of get like, whoa, like Mickey 17 is definitely getting a little bit uncomfortable with this. Like we don't know how to feel about Nasha, but she totally reminds us that she's there for all of Mickey and both Mickey. And I think she even shines a spotlight on the theme of self-love through all of that in sort of a quirky, interesting way. But I really enjoyed her character, just to say that.
Great point. I wanted to say when it comes back, look to the dinner scene, what I felt on that is that when I thought the politicians, cult leaders, the marshals, they were bad, and I was like, oh, maybe they're not like as bad as they're just kind of funny, comical. But then the dinner scene hit, and it becomes more of this underlying tones of pure species and all that. And I'm like, oh my God. It was for me like a slow reveal of, oh God, these people were actually worse than I initially thought. Especially with the right-hand man, the kind of the bald guy with the glasses, the director, and the head of
ring right here.
With the little,
I was like,
Regine looked at me halfway through. She's like, I hate the lip
Is
ring.
that real? Yeah.
oh yeah, lip ring. Oh my gosh, like this guy was so infuriating to me.
I'll
but
film it.
so
I'll get your best
fascinating.
angles.
Yeah, it was fascinating as a film, like this is such a filmmaker type character because what is the conversation about how anybody in power, they want to kind of live in infamy, they want to live in history on how their image is, and how maybe you're the one that's pushing the button, you're the one killing the creepers, you're the one that's out there giving a speech, you're blowing up something, but we're getting it on film, and how he's so enamored with the look of it as a film director. Like he seemed like a film director, like we'll shoot it. He has the megaphone right there, so many things. So I don't know, is there anything that you guys felt from that character and like the whole vibe of the marketing of this politician?
100%. He's in that position because Kenneth Marshall's character wants to look like a true pioneer in every sense of the word. He wants that front page textbook chapter image with just him conquering Niflheim, or is that what it is? Niflheim?
Yeah,
Niflheim.
Niflheim. And I mean that really comes in at the end too, when they're filming. He's like, okay, I'm gonna film you coming out, and you're gonna do this speech in front of the mother creature here, and I'm gonna shoot from low. You're gonna look huge. Like he's giving all these specific instructions on how it's gonna look, and Kenneth doesn't care about what he's doing. Nobody cares about what they're actually doing. They just want that visual. They want other people to think so highly of them that it doesn't matter what they do, which is absolutely like one of the bigger themes in this. And that theme is just nailed in with this character, this right-hand man film character. He's great. He was so funny. But
yeah, he's funny.
Yeah. It's pretty good. But
yeah. Well, another thing I wanted to talk about was the alien creatures, because what I enjoyed is that they weren't hostile, initially, that they were only hostile unless provoked, because I think there's so many times, especially in science fiction, you make a creature or an antagonist and they're immediately, bad or violent. But they were bothered because, of course, the humans were the aliens coming into that planet. They were the ones bothering the place. And I like that they were intelligent, and I like that there were shots of the eyes, and that they communicated to Mickey. And maybe while it maybe was like, oh, kind of funny and like, oh, this is kind of cute. I do think that there were some emotional layers there that I connected with, and I was like, yeah, this is Bong Joon Ho. Like, oh, I've seen Okja, right? I've seen that film.
Yeah.
I forgot that one. And so, with the it was like a hippopotamus type.
Sure,
And so
I haven't seen it, but yeah.
There's some kind of overlaying themes there about animal cruelty and
Totally
preservation of life. So
Yeah.
I definitely felt that with these creatures. And I like that they were intelligent and that they kind of gave them a voice in this, because how would they feel? Even though they're not humanoid, they're invading their home, and all they want is their baby. And they even gave them personality too, because my favorite line was at the end when Mickey 17 says, even like something along the lines of, even a creature knows how to bluff. Like, they were bluffing about the line that they could kill humans with their voice. Like,
that was hilarious.
It was
Yeah,
real.
that was really funny.
They were just kind of being loud, maybe, but they were like, we're not going to blow up your brains. We couldn't do that. So,
Yeah.
that's my 2 cents for the creatures. Love them. Love those guys.
Oh, that's good. James, any like themes in here that kind of like really stuck out to you from these characters?
From the creepers specifically, or just throughout the whole
creepers,
film?
but just through the whole film.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the creepers. I think it's really great that the only person who they really have a relationship with through the whole film is Mickey.
Yeah.
And I like that. I think the creepers and Mickey are in the same position in that they are both seen as completely expendable to the Kenneth Marshall and the company or the organization or whatever that is leading this expedition. Is that Mickey, literally being called an expendable, is someone who is taken advantage of for purposes of progression, right? Like, something we are like totally fed as like, oh, it's just like, just like medicine and like things so that people can, breathe. But then it's like revealed later on that it's the gas that we see Mickey exposed to is not the air from the outside. It's actually this chemical gas, like a weapon that they've been working on. I think there's this interesting, in that in itself, points to an interesting relationship, as Ryder, you talked about this earlier, between science and politics, or science and government, and how science is used and misused for the purposes of, going back to the theme of optics, right? Like, you want to be seen as if you're enabling science to be something for the good of all people, and you want that image. But in reality, right, like we kind of buy into that, and even early on in the film. But then at the end, we truly get the look behind the scenes of what's been going on in the science lab, and we now have a different look on these scientists who we thought were like, oh, these could be on Mickey's side, but they're not. The only characters in this film that really are on Mickey's side are Nasha and
the other
we
scientist.
thought it was Kai, but the creeper and the one scientist.
Yeah, there's one of the scientists that kind of helps Mickey out, especially at the end, but kind of throughout.
But the translator. Well, I forget her name.
I'm glad they gave her. They had one good scientist, because that's a great point. Like, why also perceive the scientists as they were so full into this ideology, right? They were like like, let's, whatever you say, sir, and more so, like, we're trying our best here. They were maybe because they're enabled, they have the power to do their research. Maybe that gives them more of a like, whatever you say, as long as I can do my research, I don't really care. They're so enamored by it.
It's the fear aspect too. They might see their position as like, oh wow, I'm a scientist under this very famous Kenneth person, and I need to make sure that everything I do is going to be acceptable to Kenneth. And so anything against that isn't allowed. They can't do anything that goes against Kenneth's ways.
Yeah, which also blows my mind about the logistics of it, because there was a couple scenes utilizing Mickey's abilities. I was like, this is kind of a cool idea, because if you had a human to test out the air, I'm like, if you go to another planet and if we want to do this crazy thing, it's like,
Sounds like a good idea.
The logistics of it, it's just insane. Like, yeah, you
Right,
go to another planet.
I was kind of on board. I was like, yes, like it makes sense that you would want to like be able to breathe the air, and like I was like, okay, sure. But then like as it goes on, you're like, okay, like this is kind of fucked up. Like,
Yeah, they're kind of abusing
kind
it.
of messed up,
Definitely
like, all
abusing
right,
it.
like you had me in the first half, but like maybe
yeah.
not
That
to
was
this
fine.
extent.
But then, when they send him out to do the little spacewalk, and they're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Mickey, like, you're not actually out here to fix anything. Like, can you take your glove off? We need to see how long it takes for you to, like, decompose.
Radiation
He's like,
Yeah,
poison.
that's when we really
really?
get the first look of like how we should feel about these
Just a lab rat.
scientists. And then with the bit of them forgetting the table for when Mickey to
Oh, I know. Yeah.
and to
As he's being printed.
he's like dangling out of the
Oh,
machine
yeah,
because he doesn't have the table, and she's like, "Get the table quickly!" And
yeah.
he's like flopping on the ground.
the biggest laugh for me was right there. Not when he was falling, but when the good doctor girl, like, looks and sees him, and she, like, flies her arms up and then, like, moves to the side. Like, that was hilarious to me. I don't know, like, very, like, physical acting, which is another piece in this whole
Great
movie.
physical
Is
comedy in this.
everybody has incredible physical comedy in this, and you just can't say
Yeah.
that about many movies, and everybody is great physical comedy. Robert Pattinson is so good. He's such
So
a good
funny.
actor, and he
So
can just
funny.
be goofy and believable and just, like, be himself, kind of. He plays all these, like, in a Batman type role or Twilight, he plays these, like, brooding characters that are, like, single note or whatever. And this one, it feels like 17's just kind of him, you know, and 18's just, like, a heightened version of him.
for sure.
And
Yeah.
it's so fun. It's fun to see him just do it.
Yeah,
It's
like
pretty.
he falls
I think it's
over.
my favorite Robert Pattinson performance when he's like running down the stairs after after
that
he's
was
found
so
out, he just
good.
falls all the way down the stairs. So funny.
like when you slide down and you're like,
Yeah.
18's all good and he's all flopsy. And then even in the dinner scene, back to that, when he's like freaking out and he's like, like it's so funny. The pain, like the way he's emoting his pain, it's like so
All
over
the
the
throw
top.
up scenes are so funny. Every time there's vomit
Yeah.
on screen. I think Kenneth Marshall is also hilarious. Every single
Mark
one of his
Ruffalo.
mannerisms.
Incredible.
Ev-
He's
so
just
good.
absolutely kills it. Every
Yeah.
time he like makes these speeches, when he makes the speeches to the people,
Yeah.
and then he like starts doubting something he's saying, and he turns to Alpha and he like leans behind
Whisper
her,
in
and
her
like, whisper in her ear like, "Hey, do you think I went too far in that? Like maybe we should dial that
Yeah.
back. Like
Yeah.
should I?" And then she's like helping him. She's like, "Yeah.
Yeah, keep
Like
going.
you
keep
should.
going.
Like no, you're
go
okay.
in.
Keep going. Keep going. Yeah."
So good. Yeah, that was all. I mean, yeah, that's all incredible. I think that kind of wraps into my favorite theme and idea that this movie has, because I do believe that a lot why this didn't necessarily hit for me as much as I wanted it to or expected it to is that I felt a lot of the themes were like on the nose or very easily. Okay, I get what you're saying here. It's not bad. It's just nothing novel or nothing new or anything. But the piece that I really gravitate onto that's an important message too is this idea of replaceability in work or just work culture in general. This idea that you can just be let go from your job and somebody else will fill it and
You're
it
just a
doesn't
body.
matter.
Yeah.
You're just a filler here, a person here to do what a company wants you to do, instead of putting more importance on your individuality and your identity outside of work. And I think this movie does that really well. It is focused on somebody that's literally replaceable, but I think that so much of it translates to so many people when they watch this movie too, that they have a strong identity outside of their work. They don't have to be defined by the things that they do for work or the things that they believe they were meant to do when it comes to that. And I think that's so important. And that's my biggest takeaway from this movie personally.
Because even in his replaceability, he was individual because he was the only one that could do that.
Right.
So
Yeah,
he was
he's the only
valuable.
one. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah,
I think the biggest thing for this movie, the biggest theme that I really related to is, I think, Robert Pattinson's relationship with himself, Mickey's relationship to himself, 17 and 18. And I think we particularly see this more with 18 than 17. I think Mickey 17 doesn't have any desire to get rid of 18 outside of like sometimes necessity is like, okay, if we out of just, self-preservation, but I think Mickey 18 is really frustrated with the aspect of himself. I think there's this whole aspect of looking at a past self, at a past iteration of you and having like shame or guilt, be like, oh, I can't believe this guy was me at one point. Like, let's just like, we need to move past and like get to where we're at to like, I need to kill that self so that I can just be myself, because that's what matters, is here in the now. Whereas I think like Mickey 18, when he gets to his final moment of choosing to sacrifice himself, to save everybody, Mark Ruffalo asked him like, oh, you're scared of death. And he's like, yeah, I am scared of death. And it was him like sort of learning actually from his past self, the fear, when his character throughout much of the film in which he's presented is a bravado of not being scared. He's very much the fearless one who always kind of runs in to danger at the risk of himself and not caring about that. And it's the fact that he recognizes the danger of being like the most vulnerable someone could be in the face of death is literally like self-sacrifice. And making that decision to sacrifice for the good of the whole.
Do you kind of feel like that was a lesson that Mickey 18 kind of learns too at the end? He kind of sacrifices himself in a sense to take
Mickey
out...
17, you mean?
18.
No, I'm saying like I think Mickey 18 is learning all this. I think...
Oh, yeah.
Mickey 18 is the prime learner of that. And what I think is like, I don't know if we see that as strongly mirrored on Mickey 17 as much.
Yeah.
I think Mickey 18 does a lot of character development, and I think that almost feels weird because he's introduced later on. We don't have as much of like
That is interesting. Yeah.
Like it's like, oh, I feel like Mickey 17 should be the one who's doing a lot of the growing.
But it is him.
Right, it is him. Right, it is him at the end of the day, and maybe Bong Joon Ho is trying to like invite us into that, but I can't help but to feel like there is still a separation where Mickey 18 is doing that learning and self-reconciliation, and Mickey 17 doesn't do as much of that.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe he does when I think the part where they try to demonstrate that is at the end, when he is at the ceremony and they're going to blow up the human replicator machine.
Yes.
And he has this sort of like this vision almost.
Okay, this is good. I really wanted to talk about this because I'm not sure that I even fully understood what was happening here, like, or the point of this scene. So keep going.
Yeah, so this is what I think it is. So Mickey 17 has this vision. He's about to press the button to blow up the human replicator machine when he gets this vision.
Yep.
And we're teleported to this instance of Mickey inside the room in which he was typically replicated, and it is Alpha printing a new Kenneth Marshall.
Yes.
And she's kind of saying like, oh, don't you want this? Like, and it's sort of like a vision of temptation to him of like, hey, if you keep this, like you actually want this, you want instruction. I think it's that you want something to do. You want someone to give you orders because you can't think for yourself. Like you don't have the confidence to make your own decisions, which is why you're choosing to be expendable, is you rather just have a role that you fit into and be told what to do than to actually think for yourself and make your own decisions.
It's the comfortable. Are you more comfortable doing that? Like, don't you just want to like not worry about it and we'll figure it out? Versus like, it's a little bit scarier to be an individual without these people, but your freedom is way worth that. Is worth so much more than that. But that is a great point. It is that that fear. It's the fear talking that sparks this vision. That's a great interpretation of that scene.
And I think to go from that, I think him making this into press the button is what that is supposed to be, is him making that decision for himself. And he even said like, what would Mickey 18 do?
Yeah.
I started learning from
himself up.
And
Yeah.
Mickey 18 did
There's a
blow himself
connection
up,
there,
and
yeah.
he said, you know what, like, you just have to do
Yeah.
it, you know, and he does it. And that's sort of the moment where it all comes full circle for 17. And I don't know if that moment hit as hard for me as I wanted it to, but
Yeah.
that is the moment, I think.
Yeah.
In conversation, I think that's a great, like,
Agreed. Yeah.
writing wise, I think that's a great climax or resolution, I would say.
Yeah.
Right.
But I do agree that the movie didn't feel like it didn't feel like too much, to be honest, to me at least watching
Yeah.
it. I felt like they played that scene more for laughs. Like Toni Collette was
Yeah,
on
for
and on about her
spooks.
sauce
Yeah.
again, and which is funny, the sauce thing. But then it was overplayed in that scene when I thought that scene was supposed to be that culmination of everything, and they just kind of go laugh, 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 and I was like, I feel like I kind of missed an opportunity there to make it a little bit more intense or meaningful.
You
Yeah,
talking about the
thought-provoking,
dinner
yeah.
scene or
No, the
scene at
vision.
end with the vision with the sauce?
Yeah.
I think the part that was lost on me was I didn't really see the metaphorical significance of the sauce. I think
Yeah.
it felt a little too trivial.
It's just silly.
Yeah. I think
It's
that was.
just
yeah,
silly.
thinking of her.
I think there is an aspect of, like, it's obvious there's something tied there obviously with them being the sauce being made of the tails of these
Yeah.
creatures, you know, but
It's to their detriment that it's just. I think it's just another aspect of keeping
like colonialism.
or keeping
Yeah.
other people under you. Like these people want to be the top, the best, and they
Yeah,
will do.
eat my sauce. It's like a weird thing.
It's such
Do
a
what I say.
trivial thing, but you have to you have to harm these creatures to make this little thing that not everybody likes. Even it's like
Yeah.
even Mark
Right.
Ruffalo kind of like tastes it and like ooh, it makes a face like it's not
Yeah.
that good. But like, yeah, I think it's showing these people are just kind of like nasty. They're not thinking about what they're doing at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you think the sauce was gonna kill Mark Ruffalo when he tried it? I thought it was
No,
gonna kill him.
not at
I
all.
thought that was a whole thing that was gonna come back around. That like the
Okay.
sauce,
Yeah.
like
They're
that
all-
their blood would actually be like harmful. Because after he tastes it, he has a little cough.
Yeah.
In the middle of like what
yeah,
he's
what was he
saying,
getting
and I'm
sick
like, oh
from?
my god, he's dying.
They're gonna kill
But
me.
That
it
would be
wasn't
great.
the case.
Yeah.
No.
We have these. We got here these fun little tidbits. And do we want to include them? I think they're
Yeah,
cool reading over them.
I think this is super interesting that I want to talk a little bit about the filming of this. So
Yeah.
obviously Bong Joon Ho is a Korean director, and that is his lifeblood. You know, like that's how he started, and that's how he tries to continue to operate here. This is obviously a movie that was made in English first, right? So he brings a lot of different directorial style, I would say, than an average movie. So this is from an interview at Screen Daily. And this is, quote, because director Bong is so confident in his plan for shooting, you end up shooting a lot shorter sequences than I was used to, said Pattinson. Normally, you would shoot a master first and then shoot an entire scene again and again. But with Bong, he's like, we're doing 2 lines and then we're moving on. The only other person I've worked with who's like this was David Cronenberg, who would only shoot very limited coverage. And so Bong gives some context to this, and he says, in Korea, we mostly edit on set. Next to the director's monitor, there's an on-set editor who works his magic. But in America, this seems very rare. Even when I was filming Snowpiercer, all the actors were surprised that we would edit on set, but that's what most Korean directors do. I thought this was super interesting.
Whoa. That is really interesting.
I wonder what could be the benefit of doing something like that. Well, I mean, of course, I know you get to see the scene all the way all together, but maybe it's an effective way of not wasting time. You know, you only need one shot essentially, and working with actors that caliber, you could probably get the take in the first take for every single actor. It's just that's the actor's thing of no, give me one, give me more, give me more. But it's like, yeah, if David Cronenberg is like, we just do one, edit it together. Look, the scene makes sense. We're good. The acting is already there.
I mean, they say, I don't know, it's a very common thought that the best editors make the best directors because you're visualizing. As a director, you need to, obviously you're focused on performance. You're like what you're seeing, how this is going to lead to the next shot, how this is going to, like, you have to think full picture about it. And when you're editing things, you have that idea in your mind about how things are going to line up. So the idea that the editor and director are working very closely on Bong sets to make this happen totally makes sense. It's just, I think I'm fascinated by this kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's a way to save money. You're like, oh, wait, this scene's going to flow into this one, maybe a little different than I thought. Let's just do one more, just inflect up.
Yeah.
So we can, just quick.
Or it's like,
right?
why are we shooting the shot if we're not going to use it? I think that at the end of the day, that's kind of it. It's like, if we're going to shoot, I know I want a close-up of Robert Pattinson right here. Why am I going to shoot this wide? Is it just for safety? Or am I know I'm going to shoot a different shot that's going to work perfectly into this shot?
And the editors there are just like, oh, we're cutting it. Doesn't make sense. Okay, cool. We don't need to waste time doing that stuff.
Yeah.
We're good.
It's not like they're getting the final cut on set. They're just editing the scenes together as it goes to be like, okay, this flows good. Like, let's continue.
Really cool.
Yeah. And then one other piece here is, according to Screen Daily, Mickey 17 also marks the first time Bong Joon Ho, the South Korean auteur, has written a screenplay without a co-writer. I ask myself every night how I can write a screenplay that AI could not, he said. How can we outsmart AI? I want to become a writer who writes one screenplay a year that AI could never replicate. I think that's a pretty baller line, too.
Nice.
Right now.
I mean, it's pretty straightforward when I bet AI would be like, oh no, Mickey, where are you going? Let's not go there. You know what I mean? But
right.
I respect it 100%. I'm with it.
Totally. Then I have one more little fun fact here if anybody wants to read it at the end.
Yeah, let's see. Bong Joon Ho insisted on filming certain key scenes without Pattinson knowing which version of Mickey he was playing until just before shooting. This method was meant to capture the confusion and existential dread of a clone struggling with his own identity. Nice,
It's a fun way to do that.
Trial by fire, throwing you into it, and you're like, you're 17. Oh, okay. Yeah, and you're giving more of confusion.
You get your sides.
That really just speaks to like Robert Pattinson as an actor.
Totally.
To be able to just like switch into it that fast, you know, and know exactly what your character is going to be like, and how. Yeah, that's crazy.
Because because it seems like a lot of 17, 18, they're just reactionary to each other. Their lines are like, especially that scene of what did you do when he poisoned you? He was like, I just thanked him. Like, you thanked him? You did what? That whole scene was like really some of the best that Robert Pattinson in the whole film.
Dinner.
Yeah, I thanked him for dinner. And 18 is just like literally like giving the best. I mean, Robert Pattinson's giving the best right there. So yeah, I think having that initial "Who am I?" Okay, just say what first comes to mind, and you capture that magic.
It's amazing. Yeah. Is there any final thoughts on Mickey 17 that you guys want to share?
I think there's another like theme that we didn't touch on as much, and I don't even necessarily want to go into depth about it, but just to like touch it, that it's there. There's this interesting moment where the church guy who is the cameraman is talking to Mark Ruffalo, Kenneth Marshall, and Mark Ruffalo commentator says, "The church, I mean the company."
Yeah.
And so I think it that moment touches on like there's something to be said in this film overall about like the church becoming something more than the church, like a device for like political gain, but also corporate gain and money, and being more affiliated with optics. And I think the church, like as a vessel for that theme, is particularly interesting. As like someone who grew up in a very evangelical household, like I know how much like optics means to even like within the church setting. So I think like that's such an interesting place to have those characters operate. Vincent, you're making a face.
No, this is a very, very interesting topic for me right now that I am kind of, I don't know. I feel like the idea of religious nationalism is such a big, big problem right now. Not to get like too preachy or anything like that, but like just like the movie's themes deal with that. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the movie deals with that a lot. And I don't know, it's saying it's a problem, but there's no like resolution to that or anything. But there's no resolution in real life to this either. It's just like it's talking about it. It's making a conversation about it. And so that's super
like poking it.
It's
like poking it and saying like, hey, like there's something here, for people. I think it's a lot of poking. I think that's what this film is doing. It's a lot of poking these themes for conversation to like arise after the fact.
And like, not to, again, I don't want to, I mean, there's so much, you can spend hours talking about this, but of course, especially the dinner scene, back to the dinner scene, there's so much in that scene, right? Of them praying and being preachy. And it feels for them, this is what's infuriating about them. They feel validated probably by their religion.
correct.
they're like,
Absolutely.
this is what
They
we're
feel
supposed to-
enabled.
It's like, oh, that's such a twisting of all of it that is so frustrating, when that's what it feels
I totally
like.
forgot about that. I forgot about
so,
the prayer scene because that's such a important moment in which they what is it? They pray for the food, or what is it they're praying for?
Yeah, maybe. Well, maybe the species thing, kind of the proposition they give, or maybe it's just the food.
It's about the
all
race.
that.
It's
about the race. Yeah.
They pray directly about their about this new race that they're going to start breeding, sort of thing, asking for blessing over it and all of that kind of thing.
And I think an interesting thing that I noted in that specifically is Robert Pattinson's character, Mickey, he doesn't know the words.
No.
And
no.
His
Kai,
mouth. The song. They
the
sing.
song.
They
Oh,
sing.
yeah, yeah.
They
Sing
sing,
a song.
they sing the song,
yeah.
and Mickey does not know the words, and Kai kind of knows the words, or at least, or I think she's ad-libbing. I think she's sort of I don't think she knows it entirely, but you can kind of see her catching on.
She's
to
playing
the
along
ends
for
of
sure. Yeah.
playing along, and I think that speaks to their characters.
Yeah.
Specifically,
No,
is I
definitely.
think Mickey doesn't know the song and doesn't try to play along.
Yeah.
And I
good
think
point. Kai
Kai
Well, he does
is-
play along, but out of necessity. He
Yeah,
doesn't. He just kind
necessity,
of
not-
mumbles
not-
through.
right, but he isn't
belonging.
defiant of it, but
Right.
he is being nice about it. But I think the distinction is Kai is she also doesn't seem to really know it, but the fact that she is trying to sing along,
She goes for it.
shows her more conformist predisposition
wow,
to
good
go with
point.
the status quo.
Conformist. I like that. That's dang, oh, good.
It's good. I mean, this is a good movie. I think my expectations were too high at the end of the day, and
How could they not be?
I know.
How could they not be?
Validly
This movie
so.
has so much hype behind it.
Yeah, it's Bong Joon Ho. It's like, oh, what's next? Yeah.
I don't think it's bad. I definitely think it's
No.
worth watching, and it's a great time at the movies for sure.
I want to know what is everyone's rating for this film? I think that's a good way to
I've yet to do
start a
it.
conclusion. You have yet to do it.
I've yet to come to decide one. I think out of the theater, I'm 6 or 7. I was like, it's all right. But after talking about
Wow,
this, I think
6
it's
or
7.
7.
I think it's
Yeah,
7.
yeah.
It's good.
I feel solid in my 7 now. I was worried that maybe I dropped to a 6 because what's it called? Recency bias is always higher for me. I always start high. But having this conversation, I'm like, yeah, I'd leave it at a 7, leave it at that, because the entertaining aspect of it, the uniqueness is what bumped it up for me. Because a good film, this is a good film, but it has that much originality, just that much, that bumps it up a half star for me. to 7.
This is my issue. I don't feel like it's unique. I don't feel like it's a unique movie. I feel like a lot of the things it does, even the
Like
story.
the cloning? Well, just the
No,
cloning
listen,
aspect.
I mean, the cloning's
two guys.
The cloning's fun, but we've seen cloning before, and the
Yeah.
alien species that's hopeful, but that's not evil. I feel like we've seen that before.
So many times.
Yeah, we've seen it. Yeah.
I feel like I
Okay.
knew that from the beginning of the film. I saw the aliens. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
they're not actually harmful. These are not.
Yeah.
Well, then maybe to make a new point, maybe not originality. Maybe for me, it was it's been a while since I've seen something. Maybe
Sure,
I'll say that.
sure.
It's like that's
Sure.
what
Yeah,
gave
yeah.
it to me.
It doesn't. It does a good job with all these things. That I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
For me, I was.
not
I
original.
wanted something new. I guess.
Makes sense. Totally with you.
Yeah, and I think that was where it didn't hit for me. Is I wanted something a little new. I wanted themes to sort of be a little less on the nose. Maybe come
Yes.
out in a way that I didn't expect. But I gave it an 8. I think it's a really great film. I think it works. I think
It does.
everything in it works, but I don't think the impact is as large or as striking as I wanted it to be. I think Parasite was such a striking film because I think what
jaw-dropper.
Parasite does is it subverts expectations so much. It's so tough to beat a film that you think is going to be about one thing but then turns out to be about
I could explain.
another thing.
I could explain Parasite to someone, and they're going to watch the movie and have a completely different experience than what I explained to them. That's the beauty of that movie. This, you don't get the same. You can't get the same as that.
Yeah, it's delivered to you in a very here. Yeah.
And I don't think that's a bad thing.
Nope.
I think there's
Again,
a place
No, it's not.
for this film, right? Like in my relationship with Bong Joon Ho, it feels very Snowpiercer. Snowpiercer is very on the nose with all its films.
Yes,
it's about like this sort of dystopian sci-fi thing, but I just think it's that plus a little bit of dark comedy.
Yeah.
And I thought it really worked. It didn't have enough resonance to take it up to a 9 or a 10 for me.
Totally.
Also, it was gorgeous. I thought everything looked pretty. We didn't talk
really well
about
shot.
any of the technical stuff. But I thought the CGI looked incredible. I thought this was like, I was talking to a friend and they were talking about comparing it to, sorry to do this to you, Ryder, talking about the CGI in this movie compared to a lot of CGI in Marvel films.
Oh, no, that's kidding. No.
And they were like, it's just a reminder that good CG exists.
Oh, it did have good CG. Like with the two of them, there were some scenes there that I was just like, how did they do this? Yeah, it was
The
incredible.
seamless stuff, like where they're fighting, that both Mickeys are fighting, it looks great.
Man.
I
It
think,
looks so good.
I mean, I don't want to get into the CG complaining, but like, I don't know, at the end when all the aliens were there and they were running around with them, I felt like things got a little iffy there, but with the snowstorm. But other than that, it's not like it wasn't a bad thing for me when I was watching it. But if I could suggest anything to everybody, is that if you have not seen Memories of Murder, I would so strongly recommend that movie. And I am very excited to revisit it pretty soon too. It's pretty dang good.
Okay. Sounds good. I like this. Recommendation at the end. You connect it. Yeah, I like that.
This is very intriguing to me.
Well, if that's it for us, I think I think that's it for us. But if you all listening at home, watching at home, want to chat about this film, you can hop in our Discord. We have a Discord that will be linked down below. Probably, I think there are links down below where we talk about movie news. We talk about games that we're playing, movies we're watching, and we just have a fun time in there. We'd love to hear what you guys think because we want to keep the conversation going with anything we talk about on this podcast. Of course, we have some videos up that you probably could check out right now on the channel, and we'll have more podcasts coming out soon. This is it, our official first episode back.
Yeah.
And what
How
a
do you guys
time
feel?
it was.
Wow. It felt good. It felt real good.
Let me give you guys some insight. We were chopping it up like, what is this first episode gonna be? Like, are we just gonna like pick a movie?
It took like 2-3 weeks.
I think that Mickey 17 is a good choice because it is a newer movie that's coming out that people are watching. I think the expectations, the Bong Joon Ho, the Robert Pattinson, there's just a lot to like get excited about and a lot to talk about in this, and so I'm stoked for it. Let us know feedback too if you want to jump in the Discord. Let us know like what else you would want to hear on the podcast. If there's any aspects that we maybe didn't talk about or did talk about that you want to hear more about. We're totally open to feedback. We're kind of just molding this as we go and figuring it out. So we appreciate you guys.
Yeah, thanks for being a part of it.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.
We'll see you on the next one. Peace out, guys.
Peace out, everybody.